Have you ever wondered why Buddhist monks live so long while radiating incredible calmness? The secret isn't just meditation or vegetarianism. There's something deeper, ancient wisdom that modern science is only now beginning to understand. Imagine this. You wake up in the morning and instead of endlessly postponing important tasks, you enter a state where time disappears and work becomes pleasure. This isn't fantasy. This is what Buddhists have been practicing for millennia. Today, I'm going to reveal the connection between the flow state, overcoming procrastination, and longevity. What I'm about to tell you will change your view on productivity forever. Ready? Then stay until the end, because the most interesting part will be in the final section of this video. Let's start with a question. What is procrastination from a Buddhist perspective? It's not just laziness or lack of motivation. Buddhists call it avidya, ignorance, when the mind wanders between past and future, finding no peace in the present moment. When you postpone important tasks, your mind is actually in a state of internal conflict. One part of you wants to act, another wants to avoid discomfort. And this conflict drains your life energy, which Buddhists call prana. Now imagine the opposite of this state, a moment when you're so absorbed in something that you forget about time. An artist losing themselves in their painting, a programmer writing code for hours without fatigue, a musician completely dissolving into melody. This is the flow state. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who studied this phenomenon, described it as the optimal state of consciousness. But Buddhists knew about this 2,500 years before him. They called it Dhyana, deep concentration. Here's what's amazing. When Buddhist monks enter a state of deep meditation, their brain activity shows the same patterns as people in a flow state. Coincidence? I don't think so. Research shows that people who regularly experience flow states live longer. Why? Because in this state, stress levels drop dramatically. Cortisol, the stress hormone that destroys our body, falls to a minimum. But there's an even deeper connection. When you procrastinate, you're not just wasting time, you're creating chronic stress. Unfinished tasks hang over you like a dark cloud, constantly reminding you of themselves. This constant background stress destroys telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of our chromosomes. The shorter the telomeres, the faster we age. This is a scientific fact proven by Nobel laureates. And now the most interesting part, Buddhist mindfulness practice and entering the flow state literally lengthen your telomeres. Yes, you heard that right. You can slow down aging simply by changing how you relate to your tasks. Take the example of Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Buddhist monk who lived to 95. He said, washing dishes is washing dishes. Sounds simple, but there's deep wisdom behind this. When you wash dishes thinking about what you need to do next, you're not present in the moment. You're creating mental resistance. This is the root of procrastination and stress. But when you fully immerse yourself in the process of washing dishes, feeling the warm water, watching soap bubbles, hearing the sounds, you enter a mini flow state. And this transforms routine into mindfulness practice. The Japanese call this Ikigai, the reason you get up in the morning. People living on the island of Okinawa, where there's the highest concentration of centenarians in the world, practice this every day. They don't postpone life for later. They don't say, when I retire, then I'll start living. They live here and now, fully immersing themselves in every action. Steve Jobs, by the way, was a big fan of Buddhism. He regularly practiced Zen meditation. And if you look at his approach to work, you'll see this flow state in action. He was so absorbed in creating products that he could work 16 hours a day without feeling tired. This wasn't workaholism in the usual sense. This was a state of deep immersion. Now let's break down how to overcome procrastination the Buddhist way. The first principle is accepting imperfection. Buddhists call this wabi-sabi. We postpone tasks because we're afraid the result will be imperfect. But Buddhism teaches that perfection is an illusion. Everything in the world is impermanent and imperfect, and that's beautiful. When you accept that your work doesn't have to be perfect, you remove enormous pressure from yourself. And paradoxically, that's when your work becomes better. The second principle is starting small. Buddhists say, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Don't try to eat an elephant whole. Break the task into micro steps. Want to write a book? Start with one paragraph. Want to start meditating? Start with 1 minute. These small actions create momentum that pulls you into a flow state. The third principle is eliminating distractions. Buddhist monks live in simplicity for a reason. Every extra thing, every phone notification, is an energy leak. When you sit down to work, create a sacred space. Turn off notifications. Remove everything unnecessary. This isn't just productivity advice, it's a spiritual practice. The fourth principle is transition ritual. Buddhist monks use bells and incense to signal the transition from one state of consciousness to another. You can create your own ritual. Light a candle before starting work. Drink a cup of tea mindfully. Take 3 deep breaths. These are signals to your brain. Now we're entering a flow state. The fifth principle is balance between challenge and skill. Flow state occurs when a task is challenging enough to engage you, but not so difficult as to cause anxiety. Buddhists call this the middle way. Not too easy, not too hard. This is the golden mean where mastery flourishes. Now about longevity, scientists from Harvard University conducted a study that lasted 75 years. You know what turned out to be the main factor for a long and happy life? Not diet, not physical exercise, not genetics. The main factor is a sense of purpose and regular immersion in meaningful activity. That is, the flow state. When you regularly enter this state, amazing things happen in your brain. Endorphins and dopamine are released, natural antidepressants and painkillers. The prefrontal cortex is activated, the part of the brain responsible for higher cognitive functions. At the same time, the area responsible for self-criticism and doubt is deactivated. That's why in a flow state you feel alive. Time slows down or speeds up. You feel unity with what you're doing. This is the Buddhist non-dual consciousness. You know what else is interesting? Procrastination is linked to inflammation in the body. Chronic stress from unfinished tasks causes systemic inflammation, which is the root of most age-related diseases. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, they're all linked to chronic inflammation, and overcoming procrastination through the flow state reduces this inflammation. Let's look at a concrete example. Haruki Murakami, the famous Japanese writer, gets up every morning at 4 a.m. and writes for 5 to 6 hours. Then he runs 10 kilometers or swims 1.5 kilometers. He does this every day, like meditation. This is his way of entering a flow state. And look at the result. At 75, he continues to create masterpieces and looks 20 years younger. Or take an example closer to home. An acquaintance of mine, a programmer, suffered from severe procrastination. She could postpone an important project for weeks, experiencing constant anxiety. Then she started practicing the Buddhist technique of Pomodoro with mindfulness. 25 minutes of complete immersion in the task, then 5 minutes of meditation, and everything changed. After 3 months, she not only became more productive, but also noticed she was sleeping better, getting sick less, and even her skin looked healthier. All of this, the result of reduced stress and regular entry into flow state. Buddhism teaches us that suffering arises from attachment and resistance. Procrastination is a form of resistance to the present moment. You resist the discomfort that the task might bring. But when you accept this discomfort and move through it, you gain freedom. And this freedom isn't just a psychological concept. It has physiological consequences. Your nervous system shifts from fight or flight mode to rest and digest mode. Your body begins to heal itself. Your cells renew more efficiently. And here's the final piece of the puzzle. Buddhists speak of the concept of anatta, the absence of a fixed self. When you're in a flow state, you lose the sense of a separate I. You don't think I'm writing, I'm drawing, I'm working. There's just writing, drawing, working happening. And in this dissolution of ego, the deepest healing. Because it's precisely our ego that creates stress, comparing, evaluating, fearing failure. And in a flow state, the ego temporarily disappears, and the body gets a precious opportunity to recover. So friends, let's summarize. The Buddhist secret of longevity isn't a pill or magic diet. It's a way of living in the present moment, fully immersing yourself in what you're doing. Overcoming procrastination isn't fighting yourself. It's acceptance, mindfulness, and creating conditions for a flow state. And when you live this way, you don't just become more productive, you literally extend your life. Start today. Choose one task, eliminate distractions, take 3 deep breaths, and immerse yourself. Feel this flow. This is your path to a long, healthy, and meaningful life. If this video was helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if we reach 5,000 likes, I'll reveal specific Buddhist meditation techniques for entering a flow state. Write in the comments which part of the video inspired you the most. Remember, your life is happening right now in this moment. Don't postpone it for later. The flow is waiting for you.